go.
2, 1.
I call a meeting to order of the Joshua Basin Water District meeting of November 20th. And I would ask Director Reynolds if he'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, thank you. Please rise. Join me with the honor to salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Determination of a quorum.
President Johnson, with all members present, you have a quorum.
Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Seconded, and,
I think there was a small correction.
all right.
Item 7, Citizens Advisory Council, not committee. Is that something that we need to make a change? Very minor.
So I'll amend my motion to approve with that correction.
All right, second. Who's good with that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved, so done. Item number 5, public comment. Members of the public may address the board at this time with regards to matters within the board's jurisdiction that are not listed on the agenda. State law prohibits the board of directors from discussing or taking action on items not included on the agenda. Members of the public will have an opportunity for public comment on any item listed on the agenda when it is addressed on the agenda. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And I guess with that, I'll open up the meeting with public comment. Are there any? All right. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, draft minutes from October 16th, 29th, August and September check registries, and the updated salary schedule.
I had a question on the check registry before we make that motion.
All right?
On the first page, date 8/1, it was, let's see, check number 001530, I think that's the check number, to AT&T for $11,900.
What page are we actually on?
The very first page
9.
of the registry.
9.
Page 9.
Thank you.
Those are for the purchase of the iPhones.
Oh, was a purchase of? Okay.
iPhones.
I was just curious what that large amount was for, and that's the only question I had. With that, I'll make the motion to approve the consent calendar if anybody else doesn't have any questions.
I was going to make a small correction on the minutes of October 16th. We talked about the shakeout. I'm not sure that I said that Tom had his Jeep there, but he had his Jeep survival gear there.
What page?
It's on stamp page 5 at the top.
So which is it?
I think you had your Jeep survival gear there. Wasn't that what it was? You didn't have your Jeep?
Correct.
Very small correction, but
Okay.
All right, with those two additions or corrections, motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
So moved. There a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify.
Aye.
Aye. So moved, so done. Item number 7, Citizens Advisory Council Report and Appointment. Karen Tracy.
The report will be very brief, recounting the most recent CAC, the minutes of the most recent CAC meeting. We had a lengthy discussion about our low-income assistance program. Kathleen Radnich reminded us what the program actually consists of, how we have marketed it extensively and have not had a robust response to paying for a small part of people's water bills. But
is the mic on?
the mic is on, it's not amplified, it's recorded. Going forward, we're recommending that the ongoing marketing conditions be repeated. There's not much reinforcement we can do. However, the CAC recommends that we then extend the program in its current form with a revisit in 6 months to maybe consider finding the funds to increase it from $50 a year to $100 a year. It would be a great service to those who have applied for the program. We went on from talking about the low-income assistance program to,
I have a question, if I may.
sure,
With the low assistance income, have we done a query or a questionnaire to find out the viability that people would actually use it? Or, because if I remember initially when the outset of this is that we were going to run it on a probationary period and to see if there was any interest. So we're saying now that we need to extend that another 6 months and raise it another $50 or something?
extend it 6 months, yes. Investigate in 6 months' time the possibility of raising it another $50. There has been response. We do have a number of people signed up.
Okay.
And we had an intake session right here in this room, and there was a constant flow all day of people signing up. So the numbers have increased because we brought application into this room. The application process in various media outreaches have said to contact Salvation Army, and that was incorrect. We have gone back to the ground level to build that back up and make it correct. We're not sure what happened with the Salvation Army connection because it actually went through United Way, not Salvation Army.
Yeah, but they're not doing,
Salvation Army was
no,
not
I know
responding.
Salvation Army, but United Way is not,
Salvation Army's been, or United Way has been very cooperative.
Okay.
They definitely show up, and their leadership came here to do that
okay,
intake.
right, okay. So we're thinking that maybe we need to increase it? And that'll get it-
I'm guessing, my intuition is telling me that if we increase the amount of money that we're giving low-income assistance people, that they would show up in bigger numbers. I don't know.
So we, if I remember, on Finance Committee, we had a cap on that, and we would then have to come back with some data to get you the money, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's,
Yeah, I'd like to suggest we consider agendizing it with the committee and the board at a future meeting, that recommendation.
It's coming back, it's coming at you.
excellent. The Finance Committee, excellent.
Following the discussion about the low-income assistance program, General Manager Mark Bann explained the CIRP and the 4-log treatment at Well 14. We got a rundown on those, so we're educated on those. We had a discussion as a CAC about attending the meetings with the board members, the different committee meetings with board members' presence. So we don't have ourselves completely wrapped around who's getting assigned to which meeting, but you will be seeing us showing up regularly at your meetings. And with that, I'm going to suggest that we appoint a new member, Barb Delph. Somebody has paperwork on this, right?
I do.
I do.
I'll be standing by to welcome her aboard.
All right, I assume you're in charge here, General Manager?
Yeah, I'd like to invite Barbara up to the microphone if she'd like to say a few words.
Hi. I'm just looking forward to, if it's possible, to get reacquainted with all the water board stuff, because I used to be really active in it, and because of personal reasons, I had to leave. But I'm really looking forward to working with Karen and the rest of the team, if you so deem.
Comments from the board?
Is this where we can cross-examine?
Sure, if you want. I have nothing to hide.
I have nothing but good to say about you,
Oh,
Barbara.
thank you.
Worked with you many years ago, and it was a very pleasant experience. I was always impressed by not only your professionalism, but your desire to gain knowledge, and your decision-making process was also noted. And so you've got my full support.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad you want to be on the Citizen Advisory Council. You add so much, it'd be a great fit. I did have some questions about your resume.
Oh, okay. I was just telling her,
This is cross-exam
my
time.
CV, I accidentally gave you the old one.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
And
and I didn't realize it until much later, so.
Are you currently employed?
No,
Okay.
I retired.
So, maybe we should have a current one though, just for your file?
Yeah, no problem.
That would be good. That answered my question.
Director Hunt?
I would just like to thank you for applying, and I very much appreciate it when members of the community take the time to step up and get involved, and it really helps us to have a robust Citizens Advisory Committee to discuss issues at a more grassroots level, and, you know, as evidenced by the breakdown on the assistance program that was given to us by Karen tonight. That's really helpful to us in getting a feel for what the needs are and what the desires are of the ratepayers in the community. So thank you. Thanks for stepping up.
My pleasure.
Glad to have you.
Thank you.
We need all the help we can get, okay, so it's great that you're here. And based on what the general manager has said in the past too, he really appreciates having the Citizens Advisory Council as a sounding board. And he does bring a lot to the meeting, and you get to hear a lot, which you probably know. And it gives people a chance to vent and ask the questions. I'm looking at Jane. So welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you. We have an extended, long history. It's good to be working with you again. I appreciate your wisdom, expertise, and always your insight. It'd be great to have you aboard. Of course, you know Gail Austin, I think, is still on that committee. And I just want to warn you. Just want to warn you. No, it's a great committee, and we look forward to you being part of it. So it's good to have you back.
Thank you.
With that, General Manager, what do we need to do?
Just take a roll call to appoint. That's it.
Okay.
Motion.
And I'd like to, just really quick, thank the Citizens Advisory Council. Thank you, Karen, Kathleen, for building up the Citizens Advisory Council. Really pleased with that. And Mark, you've been giving them the orientations, the kind of department orientations? And
Yeah, we've been updating them a lot on our capital side of things right now. So the next meeting, we actually have Randy Little's going to come in and provide a training session on what they do for the production side of stuff. So.
Good, good.
We'll take a roll call vote then. Is that what we need to do?
Yeah, I believe so in this case, yeah.
A motion?
I move that we receive Barbara Dell's application to the Citizens Advisory Council and
Second?
appoint her.
Second that. All those in favor?
Hi,
Aye.
So moved, so done.
welcome aboard.
Thank you, thank you. The next CAC meeting will be on January 14th, 2020.
Item number 8, Capital Improvement Replacement Program, fiscal year 2021, water main replacement design. Mark Van, General Manager.
Thank you. This is actually for the design of our 2021 fiscal year CARP project, our mainline replacement. It'll be up on the north end of our district. It's a continuance. We've talked a lot about us going up there and replacing some water main on Tilford Avenue up north there. This is a continuation of this project. It'll help with the reservoir feed in that area and also replace a lot of steel pipe that's up in that portion of the woods. So we actually have Sean McCarty from West Coast Civil, who's the proposer in this case, and the total cost is $105,860. I'll be happy to answer any questions after public comment.
Does Sean have anything to?
Would you like to add to that, Sean?
He only drove from L.A.
Close.
San Diego, actually.
San Diego. Oh!
Sean McCarty, West Coast Civil. I'm happy to be here, and I've designed over 20 miles of capital water line replacement with Mark over at High Desert, and recently just completed the Saddleback project here. We're excited to continue our efforts here with Joshua Basin, and look forward to really improving your infrastructure and getting your water loss down. So.
Once the design's in place, I assume you'll come up and visit, or how does that work?
I'd love to come up and visit. I come up regularly, so I was up 2 weeks ago discussing the project with Mark, making sure that or was it a month ago? It might have been a month ago.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and making sure we had the right scope and any tweaks we could do. We came up for the ribbon cutting for Saddleback, so I'm excited to do that. And anytime Mark needs anything, I'm always available. So, been working with Mark for close to 10 years now. So.
Well, I'll ask the rest of the board if they have any questions, if we may. Sure. I'll start with Director Hunt.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you and Mark about the triggers. Under additional services, it says, if requested by the district, WCC will provide the following additional services, and it lists, attend additional meetings is pretty straightforward, but, geotechnical investigations, scour analysis, those two in particular, what could potentially trigger the need to do those two things?
So those are more of we're really familiar with the geology in the area, and we don't foresee a need for a geotechnical report. If during our field visit we discover something, or if during construction there appears to be a fault or something as we're digging that we were unaware of, then Mark might ask us to look into that more. The scour analysis is really when you have your wash beds, the creek dry wash beds. We want to make sure that that's below the depth of scour. So what we've done in the past is we've gone 3 diameters deeper than our normal installation, and we put gate valves on each side. So in case of a washout, we can your operations staff can quickly shut down that line and replace it. It's pretty infrequent that occurs. If you had a main line, which isn't necessarily in this project, but 16 inches or larger, we would want to do a full scour analysis. It could be harder to get the material in to replace that during a storm event. So those are highly unlikely that they'll be implemented, but they're there to kind of protect West Coast Civil in case those incidents arise.
So if I'm interpreting what you said correctly, you've got some build-ins to the design that will anticipate wash scour during a flood that should meet the need, but if something were...
If something arises out of my understanding and Mark and I's understanding of the scope of the work, which I tried to illustrate in Scope of Services, Section 1 of the proposal, then we would approach that at that time.
Okay, great.
It's not anticipated.
Sure, understood. And then lastly, on the plats and legals, it says to perform any necessary easement acquisition for the properties along La Crescenta Drive. So is that an outstanding question right now, whether or not easements would be needed? Is that why it's an if requested?
Right, so without looking into every parcel along the way and every title report on the way, from the county data, it wasn't clear if there does need an easement, but that's one of our first orders of business. And there's a lot of patent easements in that area, so we don't anticipate needing it. But it's part of the scope to go in and make sure that we understand what the rights of way are and what existing easements occur across the properties.
So once again, once you've done that, if an easement is needed, this would cover that contingency?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Director Flynn?
So what is geotechnical engineering?
So it is engineering regarding the soil subsurface. So out in this area, there's a lot of decomposed granite. It's very nice soil to work in. It's very nice soil for pipelines to be put in. So other than the couple fault lines that run through the area and some rock outcroppings, we have really good soil.
So erosion is something that happens over a broad area, and scouring is something that happens in a specific area.
Right, so scour is really when you have a wash, what happens is the wash bed will scour really deep, and you won't notice it during the rain event. And then as the storm kind of slowly comes back, it fills in sediment, so you get really loose dirt, right? And it's a little bit lower, it could be a little bit higher, but it's usually a little bit lower, but it's really unconsolidated. And so what happens is it can dig up the pipe underneath it. If it's crossing, it could break it and then fill it in with soil behind, so you really don't know, other than pouring water. So that's scour, but there's calculations that you can perform by getting the drainage basin and understanding, what erosion potential in the drainage basin occurs, and then you can estimate the depth of scour, and then typically we put the pipeline 2 feet below the anticipated depth of scour.
So on October the 13th of 2018, we had like a 50-year rain. And up that away, that means to the kind of the southwest, we had an incident in one of the washes where there was some scouring that took place, and the exposed pipe was pushed, broken, and then kind of pretzeled. It was bent in half. So the possibility, because there's a lot of folks that think it doesn't rain in the desert. But this type of a thing is not necessarily hypothetical. This is real. Do we, would we then on our own, say concrete, do some concrete around a pipe that goes through a wash to mitigate this? So we don't, because I can remember getting phone calls from residents up there wondering when their water was going to be turned back on. We did have an excellent response to that, by the way, I saw it. But do we do that as an option ourselves without the benefit of an engineering guy to say reinforce with concrete in some of these washes?
Yeah, a lot of the times we can use like a slurry or something around the pipe to compromise some of the depth, or give up some of the depth we normally put in. In that case, there was certainly no scour analysis or even real common sense applied to installing that water main. It just basically stayed the same elevation it did in the street as it crossed. So, and a lot of times, these larger drainage features, you've got to get a encroachment permit from the flood department too, as well, and they'll require these scour analysis to be performed as part of that permit process. So.
And if I recall the Tilford area, there's one kind of alluvial fan that term, so like a broad drainage basin out here, so you could kind of see it from an aerial. It's the color pigmentation changes and it kind of braids through that we're crossing. And we did a very similar thing on Saddleback where we went 5 feet deeper than we normally would.
Oh, okay.
So is it your study? Am I taking too much time? Is it your study that will determine the positioning of new fire hydrants, or are we going to just put them where the old ones are?
No, we will put them out of the way of any drainage feature.
But no, just because I think the fire department is going to have an interest in where their fire hydrants are going. And so I was wondering if they're going to simply automatically go in the same place.
We typically don't. We use a more logical protocol that meets fire's layout. So every, I don't recall in this area, I think it's 400 feet? Six, that's right, okay. So every 600 feet, opposite sides, and you work the block to make sure that adequate fire flow is for the region. So we're not just replacing pipe and pipe, we're rethinking the system and making sure that it's up to standard and codes. So for fire department, water operations.
In most cases, in all cases, probably where we're actually replacing pipe, we're increasing the amount of valves and hydrants that are out there in the system exponentially.
Do we interact with the fire department on this in any way, or is this, because I'm wondering if they have mapping GIS or whatever that tells them where their fire hydrants are?
Set aside providing them with a map, kind of keeping them updated with the map of where they're located, that's about it.
Yeah. I'm not overly concerned, because as you say, there is specific requirements as to where they're going to be, and everybody knows what those rules are. And finally, these numbers here, this extra amount for these 3 or 4 things, which amounts to $49,000, which would put the total for this at 100 for this planning process, which could take a year, according to this information. The total on that would then be $154,860. However, that part, I'm guessing that's just a round number estimate for these extra things that may or may not occur. It's like a contingency almost sort of a thing.
Right, as those popped up, we'd be coming back to the board and kind of keeping you abreast of what's happening with the design of it and asking for approval on those items as well. So.
Just tried to give Mark the high end of what possibly could happen.
The preferred.
But it's not anticipated.
Thank you for your patience, Mr. President.
Director Reynolds?
Thank you. The scouring analysis was something that I was curious about too, and so thank you. We've answered that question, and it makes lots of sense. My next question is the money. You know, on the agenda, it's let's see here. Does it show that number? We were asking for $105,000+. But what about the additional services? How is that included? Is that going to be included in the motion that's made tonight, or that is additional that may or may not happen?
Correct, yeah, we'd come back to the board for those approvals at a later date if we needed them.
Okay. Okay, so the topic at hand is going to be the $105,860.
Correct.
Okay, good. The next question I had was on the Tilford design package, 25 sheets. Are those blueprint sheets, or what are the 25
Yeah, I mean,
sheets?
they're 24-inch by 36-inch design sheets. California banned about 15 years ago the use of ammonia in blueprints, so they don't actually make blueprints anymore, but it's very similar. It's just white paper, but engineered sheets, stamped by me, the licensed civil engineer. So,
Okay.
but it indicates how to build the pipeline, elevations, northings and eastings, property lines to make sure that we don't go into anybody's property. Yeah, I can, well, maybe if I get into my server, I could show you one on the phone for Tilford, but we were having server issues this morning, so.
Okay, and so we have in our offices a copy of those sheets?
For Saddleback.
Okay, for Saddleback.
Yeah.
Okay, and
They also get uploaded to our GIS system as well during and
Okay.
after the project.
great. That expires all of my questions. Thank you.
We went over this in the finance committee. I'm glad to hear my other directors ask questions that I didn't ask, and probably wouldn't understand enough to ask them those questions. What is the population over in that area?
I'd have to get back to you on that one.
I mean, it's kind of spread out.
Correct. It's not as dense of an area.
Yeah, so when you're talking about like easements and things like that, I'm thinking, you know, is it part of the finding like who owns the property? Because some of that stuff has been passed around for a long time.
That's actually pretty easy to do.
Yeah, that's easy.
It's sparse, and you, likely in those sparse locations, you have additional leaks because it's sparse, right? But also, it's undersized, so its fire capacity, its firefighting capacity is limited because there's a lot of 4-inch and 6-inch pipe there instead of an 8-inch main. So it will be a good improvement for the district.
No kidding. And it was interesting though to hear that there is like one, like say one of those alluvial fan type features up there, because normally the floodplain is really, you know, south of the highway.
Yes.
And not much really to speak over there. Once you get off like Aberdeen and stuff, where you're actually on the mesa, they flood out pretty bad, but this is east of that.
Well, in my experience in the desert, you kind of never know where when and where the storm's going to hit, And so you got to look at every basin. And it's nice, you can kind of see the features of a creek and a wash from an aerial. So, and field walking helps everything. So.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you being here. I've heard a lot about you and the organization, so I welcome you aboard, or hold on. I'll make a motion then, or I'll entertain a motion. The board?
I'll move that we approve the proposal from West Coast Civil to continue with the capital improvement and replacement program.
All right, is
So
there a
that's at
second?
the 105?
Yes,
The
it's
105,
105, 80 something. Yes,
Yeah, on page 33.
105, 860.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Any further discussion, any comments from the public? Yes, ma'am. Take the podium, please.
Jane Jarlsberg, Joshua Tree, Central Joshua Tree. I just wanted to make a comment. I appreciate hearing about the carefulness on easements, because I was just hearing about what's going on with Frontier, who's kind of in trouble for their easements. So I'm just happy you guys are covering it.
That could be a problem.
Any other comments? If not, then the motion has been made, it's been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So moved, so done. Now I can say welcome, and look forward to seeing you about.
Thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, or that short drive back to San Diego is waiting for you. Item number 9, boardroom technology update.
Thank you. So as part of this, we're looking to improve the technology along the dais here, especially for the board members, being able to look at some of the PowerPoints that we provide and also the district's agenda and supplemental material. As part of this, it would provide 5 monitors, one in front of each board member, and also a small computer, which is called a thin client, that would actually allow you to access the board agenda and the supplemental material as well. There'll be a small switch that you could flip over when we are showing a PowerPoint up here to be able to view that PowerPoint as well right in front of you. So something to kind of help you guys save your necks for a little bit longer, and also let you kind of view what you need to as we go through the board meeting each night. So the total cost for this particular portion to provide the monitors, the thin clients, and the ability to show the PowerPoints on there is $3,387.61. It was also brought up to do something about our microphone system here as well. So staff is also looking into that. They can all make those purchases on their own approval authority. So.
All right. I'll entertain board comments.
Which end do you want to start at?
Sure, let's do it. Oh, this is your expertise, Gary.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Mark, and the rest of the staff for move us into the 21st century. I really do. We talked about this in the Water Resources and Operations Committee meeting, and and I believe they covered it in finance as well. And I think it'll be a great step forward. It will enable us, for example, to review our agendas in PDF electronic format and mark them up ahead of the meetings, and then actually send them to ourselves, and then be able to open them up before we talked about shutting down email capability after the meeting started, just to maintain public confidence that we weren't sending emails back and forth and having discussions during the meeting. But I think being able to do that electronically, a PDF, as many of you know, you can actually search the document. So in the course of the meeting, after we have reviewed the agenda, if there's something that kind of sticks in our mind that we want to do a quick search on, so that we can better engage our fellow board members and the public on an issue, it will really help with that. For folks that still like hard copy, which I do generally, but for these kinds of things, I tend to just keep everything electronic because then it saves paper, and that has environmental benefits, but maybe more importantly to the district, it saves staff a lot of time and effort to, make us numerous copies of things. So I like the idea of moving toward going paperless. We also talked about monitors, and more than one of us were concerned that we didn't have big monitors in front of us that blocked us from, making eye contact with the public and, interacting in that way with the public that attends the meetings. And, Mark, being the techie that he is, told me immediately there were ways to get monitors and mount them in such a way that that wouldn't be an issue. So anyway, I just want to, and also I think several of us were blown away at the very inexpensive, how low the cost was to upgrade our technology so much. And it's one of the many attributes about Mark that I appreciate is his technological savvy, and I'm a little bit of a tech nerd myself, so I really appreciate that. So that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Director Flowen?
This isn't the first time this has been upgraded. It's happened before. The monitor hasn't always been there. There hasn't been flat screens forever. So there were other types of things. So to renew some of this stuff is kind of natural. We do have to proceed. The term hard copy was used as preference for paper for these documents. I do read this stuff, and when I'm looking at page 10 of 43 in the check register, which are on the web for anybody to look at, it looks for all the world like the Mojave Water Agency for the purchase of water received $354,000 payment when using the magnification feature of my home computer of these documents, I saw that it was actually $154,000. So, one could go up the emotional flagpole when one sees a number like 354K when it is really, and it's simply a poor copy of the document is all it is. And so to go to something that has more clarity to it, other than the fact that you can access more detailed information and do searches and stuff, but it would be a good idea, I think. Thank you.
Director Reynolds?
Thank you. Well, this all started with, that thing's a pain in the neck. And when you're sitting this close to it, and you've got to do that by the end of the meeting, especially when there's presentations, it is painful. I'd be happy to have a giant monitor on the back wall, and looking at the cost to get all we're getting, it's a pleasant thing. So I'm all for it. While we were talking about it in the committee meeting, the subject of Brown Act and potential Brown Act violating just even the appearance of it was something I was concerned with as well. In communicating while you're in a board meeting, even the appearance or the ability to send text messages or to say, hey, how are you going to vote on this one? It is something to be addressed, and it is. And it's easily can be dealt with. So that pleases me as well. Win-win. Here we are. We're spending a lot of time talking about $3,000 and some change, but it's a good deal. On the next subject, the monitors, I noticed I was just recently at a Mojave Water Agency, and after talking about that, I took special notice to how the monitors are there, and the board members are literally hidden behind the monitor.
Right.
And I never really noticed it until we talked about it here in our meeting, and I thought, you know what, that's very impersonal. and they have these giant screens, and they're touch screens, and it's really, super high-tech and cool. And so I'd kind of like to, have a little bit of the best of both worlds. So if we can hide the monitor, and we can still make eye contact, you can still see us, and, we're on the up-and-up transparency. There's no ability for texting or email back and forth during a meeting. I'm for it 100%. Let's do this. What a pain in the neck that thing is. So, on one final comment, and I am an old school, I like paper. And I know that, progress happens. And I'm going to bite my teeth the whole way, and I'll do my best to learn and get used to it. I really like paper. I like, I keep these in a giant folder, and I go back and look at them, because I remember now, and I'm just used to it. And so making that transition eventually to electronic is inevitable. I don't like it, but I'm going to have to get used to it, and I accept it. All right. That's all I have.
Director Unger?
I like paper too, and I like being able to take the agenda apart and mark all over it and do stuff like that and make notes. But I think it is important, other people will sit at this dais when I am gone, and they will thank us for having moved us into the 21st century. I had a question. There's two different prices. I remember we talked about this in the Finance Committee. On page 38, it's $3,387.61, and then on the staff report, it's $4,827.
I was thinking labor.
And I know we had anticipated some, we had talked about some different pricing. We had this, we had that,
Correct,
we had
yeah.
something else.
Yeah, correct, I apologize. It's also to include labor from Southwest as well.
So
So
the,
you can see on the actual estimate here, it says
To be
labor estimate
determined,
12 to 16 hours.
okay. So that, what it says, bench labor, on-site labor, and it looks like it has a TBD. So that's, you're kind of adding that into the, so which price is it then?
It would actually be the $4,827.
Good catch.
And then, I thought maybe it's because we're getting the kind of chords that are on there, the musical chords.
The HDMI there, you mean, or?
It should be CORDS, not CHORDS. I'm sorry.
CH chords.
So what we are listening on.
Just taking a guitar lesson right in this.
So would be the 482788 would be the,
Correct.
okay. I have nothing more.
This was brought to the Finance Committee, and we thought it was long overdue, so I'll just ditto most of the other comments, and even actually had some public comment from some of the folks that were there saying they think it's a good idea. So we were talking about the microphone system, though, and I thought, I was hoping that would be included in this, and it's not.
Yeah, we're still looking at some different microphones, trying
So
to
it
get the
won't come
price
from the
down
same
on them.
company, or?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
We'll do that work. It's a
All
little
right.
easier.
So I'll open that to public comment if there are any. Yes, ma'am? And yes, ma'am.
You said that everything's going to be in PDF, so in other words, if you guys have any comments or any notes you want to take on your agendas, you're not going to be able to put them in?
Yeah, there's actually programs that you can utilize to write over PDFs and
Right.
take notes on there, so they will be able
You
to.
can change a PDF to a Word and, yeah. So they'll be able to take, if they have any notes they want to take, they'll be able to do that during the meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
So we should be able to earmark and
If I
make
may
notes.
comment on that, and President Johnson, I use them all the time at work, and even without additional software, you can insert comments and write all the notes you want on a PDF document. So when we have a document, we can mark it up, highlight it, we can unhighlight it, we can insert a comment and type notes. So basically, we can do all the things we do right now by hand. And of course, I'm sure paper copies will still be available to us that want them. But yeah, we'd be able to take notes.
Bob doodles on his agenda.
Yeah, you don't want to read my comments. Jane?
Yeah, I don't know if you can doodle, though. If you're like doing intricate artwork, you might need to get a different program.
That's true.
You have to taste.
Jane Charlesburg again. I wanted to mention that I'm assuming that you could print any paper out that you wanted, or maybe even request it, that it wouldn't inhibit you from doing that. I would hope so. And I think you can also do like little Post-its on PDFs too. There's a lot of ways that you can add stuff to it. And I think more and more all the time, it seems like they update it all the time. The other thing is I thought maybe the public could have a little tour, the first day that you institute this, so we can go behind and see what you're actually looking at, kind of thing. That might help it be more public too. And I love the idea that we can see your faces.
And we don't put the agenda and stuff on the big screen, we just use the big screen for their stuff. Mojave, they've got screens all over that boardroom, and no matter where you sit, you can read stuff and everything, so maybe that's just making it more visual for people.
But I can also see you up there.
Oh.
And I assume that these can all be moved when we get done with our remodeling project and our construction fund and everything, when we remodel the boardroom, that we will have this repositioned and everything for...
We just remodeled the boardroom.
10 years ago.
Anyway, thank you. Entertain a motion, if someone would be so kind.
I move that we approve Southwest Network's proposal to upgrade the current boardroom technology, $4,827.88.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So moved, so done. Felt like an auctioneer here for a second. Required ethics and anti-harassment training. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. This is more of a housekeeping piece, but it's an important one. It updates the administrative code to reflect that ethics training needs to be conducted after 6 months of being appointed to the board or hired by designated staff, and then anti-harassment training also 6 months, and then every 2 years thereafter. Anti-harassment training has been updated in 2019, that all staff have to be trained in anti-harassment. It used to be just anybody that was a supervisor or a manager. We've always provided that training for all staff because I feel like it's very important, but this is just putting it down in writing to update our policies to make sure that we don't forget it, and make sure that everybody knows that we feel it's important. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Start with Director Reynolds.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty used to the required ethics training, and now there's the anti-harassment added to that title. It's always, in my opinion, been the same, but like you said, it's a housekeeping item. I can see the importance of it in certain circumstances, and it's good. I also agree it's good that all employees, all staff, takes this training, and they know what's up. So then they know what to look for, and they could be being harassed and not even know it, not even realize it, and so that could open up a whole new bag of worms. But if we're all trained, we all know what not to do and what to do in case we are concerned about something. It's a win-win situation.
Yeah, just notice the change from just sexual harassment to anti-harassment, so to cover a whole lot of more stuff. So, and I was just at a Mojave meeting, and they were doing the same thing, definitely updating and So thank you very much. It was very, very easy to read the edits and then to find the clean copy. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Director Hunt?
Oh, I just wanted to briefly add that we just did this training in my organization to meet the updated standards, and now, you know, there are issues like gender harassment as well as sexual harassment, and, you know, all of these edits appear to have very succinctly, you know, captured the necessary changes, and you caught things like, you know, should and change it to must, and, you know, it just makes it stronger and clearer, and that is good for ensuring a healthy workplace and also protecting us from potential liability. So, thank you.
Director Long?
I don't have too much to add on that. Director Reynolds pretty much capsulized my feelings on this. It is required by law to do these things, and so we're in compliance. That's a good thing. Also, I just thought I'd note that we're starting to see on some of these issues that we consider up here, at the very bottom, there'll be something that says strategic plan items, and it'll enumerate those. A while back, a year or so ago, 2 years, we had a really big meeting, a strategic planning meeting. It went on for days, I recall. Everybody, no, it did. It went on for days. It went on for days. If it would have been possible, everybody would have been there in the organization, but there was representatives from everybody in the organization, including people from the Citizens Advisory Council, especially Gail. Gail made some huge contributions to that. It was a meeting to say, to try and define who we are and what we do and how we do it. And these kinds of things were considered in there. So there's now a reference on a lot of the things that we consider on the board here to the strategic plan that was established on those days. And in this case, there's 6 of them, 6 of the things that were mentioned in that strategic plan that can be considered with something like this. And I like to see that because, as we're starting to say now, when we make these such a thing as a strategic plan, it doesn't just sit on a shelf. I was going to say any more, but I don't know if that'd be fair. And that's what we're going to, when the public reviews some of these things, that's what this means on the bottom. It's a reference to the plan and how this addresses, how an item addresses that plan. Thank you, sir.
That's all in good order. I appreciate it. It's always tough when you're getting elected or newly on the board to get up to speed, but that 6-month rolls pretty quickly. And one of the fortunate things about some of this is that there are conferences on occasion that these classes can be taken, of course, online, which is a lot of fun. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to recommend that we adopt the resolutions.
I'll make that motion.
That would be Resolution 19-1016, updating the ethics and anti-harassment training. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
All right. Any public comment? Not. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved, so done. Item 11, General Manager's Report.
I'd just like to report that we took a small pause on our pipeline project over on the Saddleback area. Our crews are now back over on San Rafael working, of course, pending the weather that we've got going on right now. Might not be doing it tomorrow, but we were actually backlogged about 400 electronic read meters out there that weren't providing a signal that we were having to manually read every month. And so all of our staff basically got together and went out and replaced all 400 of those within, what, maybe 8 working days, I think it was, in total. So it got it to where we were actually able to complete the entire meter reading process without having to get back out and do a bunch more manual reads. So good process moving forward. Other than that, they're back out on the pipeline replacement project, and we'll be hitting about 15,000 feet here shortly after the holidays. So that's it for me.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Podium, please.
Or it is really, I think, is what you said.
We'll make it that way.
Regarding the replacement of meters, that's what you're talking about? That you've completed the replacement, or just a portion of them?
Right, so we actually have a capital project that's about a 5-year capital project, replacing about 900 meters a year. And so this took care of 400 of the 900
okay.
of the 900 that we
Okay,
actually had
yeah.
slotted to replace this year already.
Well, I kind of had a question, because my bill went up a little bit, and I remember the last meeting they talked about, might have been the board meeting, about a replacement of the meter might increase the bill. But I went out and checked my meter, and it's still cobweb covered, so I assumed it wasn't a new one.
Right.
So I wonder, is there a way to find out when you're scheduled to get a new one and how it relates to your bill?
You know, other than them knocking on your door and letting you know that they'll be shutting the water off for a short period of time, that's about the most.
We don't get any
honest we
forenotice or anything?
No, it's off for such a short period of
Yeah,
time that
right.
most time it happens.
Okay,
But they
I'm
do
just
knock
curious.
before they replace it.
Pardon? They
They
will
do knock
knock?
before they replace it in case you're home. so.
Okay, all
Mhm.
right, good, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Item number 12, Director's Comments, Reports on Meetings Attended. Director Unger with the Mojave Water Tech Committee on October 21st.
Yeah, this is the Technical Advisory Committee, really interesting committee. And so they talked about, it was very controversial. In June, Mojave Water Agency purchased 7,000 acre-feet a year of water rights, 7 wells for monitoring, and easement rights from a defunct Cool Water Lugo facility power plant in Daggett. And the purchase price was $5.7 million, but they figured that was equal to 9,800 acre-feet of state water project water. This power plant had water rights, they had an auction of their water rights in May, and they contacted Mojave for like the whole enchilada, and they were able to make that deal. And they said they don't have any plans to pump or sell that water. They're going to keep it for overdrafted, the Baja adjudicated subbasin, which has been a problem in the 2017-18 water year. The actual pumping for the subbasin was 22,300 acre feet, while the safe yield was 12,000 acre feet. This was a very controversial, as I say, an unpopular deal with the Newberry Springs Lake Property Owners Association. It's a group of homes around these lakes. It says the first lake was established in the 1940s by a Pasadena doctor, Dr. Horton. He was a water skiing enthusiast. And throughout the years since then, more lakes were created through the 1970s for recreation. They show pictures. It's really very beautiful. The lakes are still used for ski tournaments, but they're also wildlands and wetlands. They had a lot of pictures of everything from bobcats to cranes out there. The Lake Association, they actually put in a bid for these, just for the water rights. They said they cobbled together $2.7 million bid just for the water rights. But now they're hoping that somehow Mojave will sell them 3,600 acre feet of that old Gen-On water, and the future looks uncertain for that. Mojave doesn't want to sell it, they don't want to pump it, they don't want to start spreading it around. It's been controversial with the people out there on the lakes. I guess there's also agricultural water they can get, and so it was pretty tough. But Richard Selby, he's on with the California Rural Water Association. He did note that Daggett is designated by the state as a severe disadvantaged community. And so he said they are looking for grants to help these small water systems, which there's a lot of them out there. And Lance Eckhart, he's Mojave's Director of Basin Management and Resource Planning. He said the more Prop 1 funding is coming. He said our water district, Joshua Basin Water District, is in for $1 million for water conservation and infrastructure management. That was that.
All right, thank you. The Association of San Bernardino County Special Districts dinner, Director Reynolds.
Oh, thank you. I attended that meeting. It was at Sierra Lakes Golf Club, a very fancy place. I've been there once before to help celebrate then Senator Bob Dutton's birthday. So it was nice going back there, a beautiful place. The main topic of that, there was a couple of things. They talked about the Santa Ana watershed and the sucker, their concerns with that fish. But then they went on to talk about how they are planning on making this deal. It's kind of a crazy deal with Huntington Beach. What they want to do is work, and I guess they want to purchase some desal in Huntington Beach and trade that for water rights coming from the California, from the California, from there, yes. And so they're, and how they were explaining to them, it seemed like quite the pie-in-the-sky plan, but if it goes through, it'll be a huge change. But so we're starting to see, like what you were talking about with Newberry Springs, there is business in water. It's not just a service, but water is becoming big business, and I'm seeing that more and more. And through the special districts, we talked about that. Bunch of other little things, but that was the crux of the meeting. So, yeah, they want to build a desal for Huntington Beach.
The one in Carlsbad was extremely expensive. It was billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And then when they put in these the state had a whole bunch of new drought restriction stuff. They said, boy, if we'd have known that before, no one would have voted, $2 billion to build this desal plant, because now they can't water their lawns.
So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mojave Water Agency Board of Directors, October 24th.
Oh, that was me.
Director Unger.
It was interesting, a lot of things that they had on their agendas are things that we have been covering. They also had the resolution updating their ethics and harassment training. They had an update to personnel policies, benefits, things that we've been talking about. They had their audit. They also were talking about utility billing, things like that. But the thing that I really liked was that they have actually now got on for a grant to start the water banking program. And it's through the Bureau of Reclamation. It's to get a study. It's a $150,000 grant, but it is a 50% cost share. But they're looking at, Lance, who I mentioned him before, has really put a lot of time into this, and being able to bank water where you kind of wouldn't expect it. He says, we've got so much great banking opportunities out here. He says the desert mostly, he said, is not polluted. He said if you're dealing in cities and stuff, there's all the runoff, there's oil, grease, everything for people's cars, stuff that gets dumped. And he says, we really have pristine places for aquifers and to do this. So he's put in for the grant, and I guess he feels pretty good about it. And it's what it's called an applied science grant. So hopefully we'll be hearing about that coming through shortly. But I think it's very, very progressive idea and very far thinking, and I really salute him, so look forward to hearing more about that.
Thank you. I attended the Morongo Basin Pipeline Commission meeting on October 29th. Had a warm reception over at High Desert. Their primary discussion was, of course, the ribbon cutting that was going on, and this is old news, but Mojave Water Agency also presented the fact that they're going to have a maintenance project going on sometime mid-year next year that will shut down the pipeline there for a while, but it won't impact operations. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's May, June, somewhere in that neighborhood. But it was a good and interesting meeting, and talking about algae skimmers and all kinds of interesting things, so enjoyed the meeting. Finance meeting on November 13th was riveting, and check registry was always stimulating, and if you weren't there, you missed an exciting meeting. We talked about some of the items that were already on the agenda here, and thank those folks that were there. And
We were out of there in a half an hour.
we were. It was one of the shortest ever, and I just want to thank staff. They had everything ready to roll, and we will be having an audit report coming to you soon, I think, on our next meeting. Also on the 13th of November, there was a Water Resource and Operations Committee meeting, and I will defer to Director Hund or Director Reynolds, or...
Yeah, I'm the committee chair, so
Oh, okay.
I'll start out with it, but then Director Reynolds might want to add some things. I did want to point out, and I think you've already noticed it, President Johnson, and just for the members of the audience, that some of the things listed in item 13 as future agenda items are actually meetings that occurred already, and the Finance Committee and the Water Resources and Operations Committee meetings are two of those. So basically, we covered the items that were discussed tonight, and so I don't really feel a need to expound too much on them. We talked about the capital improvement and replacement program, the boardroom technology update, and we also talked about the progress of the replacement of the 400 water meters and the progress that's been made in pipeline replacement. And I just wanted to speak generally to that. I've been incredibly impressed by how much pipeline we've already replaced, and just without looking it up and adding it up between what is planned to be completed this year and next year, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 miles of pipeline or so in a couple years, which is getting close to 1/10 of all of our pipes in just a couple of years' time. And considering the specter of what we were looking at the on the board when I first joined the board, and we had a rate study done, and we're considering rate increases, and we were all wringing our hands over that because we're very concerned about our ratepayers, especially our ratepayers that are lower income families, the impact that it would have on them. But we felt that we couldn't kick the can down the road anymore, that we had to raise the rates sufficiently that we could begin to do capital improvements that were badly needed. And Mark Ban, at the time as Assistant General Manager, had experience with doing capital improvement using in-house staff and equipment. So we also made a decision to purchase our own equipment and lay our own pipeline, which has dramatically reduced the cost of laying pipeline, but it's also sped up the process of putting pipeline in, thanks to his knowledge, to good agreements with consultants to get the schematics completed, and just with using an old term, a crackerjack crew that just gets out there and really gets on with the work and lays pipeline at almost a record speed. So I, for one, having been involved in that journey from almost its beginning with some of the folks that are no longer on the board, unfortunately, because they're no longer with us, that really dedicated themselves, like Victoria Fuller and Mickey Luckman, to seeing this through, especially in their memories. I really appreciate the progress that we've all made, staff and the board, to make that happen. And I'm just astounded at the progress. And I just wanted to make one more quick point, and we talked about it tonight, in terms of firefighting capability and public safety from that standpoint, and protecting people's property. We have many pipeline systems that that are undersized and are because of their size limit firefighting capability, no matter how good our firefighters are. And by putting appropriate sized pipelines in and locating fire hydrants, in locations where they belong and putting enough of them in that there's one close to every structure, that's going to be a side but very tangible benefit to this project. So for me, that was the biggest thing that came out of the meeting, was just the tremendous progress we're making with capital improvement and namely pipeline replacement. Thank you.
November 14th, Mojave Water Agency Board of Directors meeting, and I think that's Director Reynolds.
That was me. I kind of still like paper because I can mark it up. And it helps me to remember what went on, in this case, it was just recently. It was a rather short meeting for a Mojave Water Agency meeting. It was over in about an hour and 5 minutes.
Wow.
I think that's a record for their meetings. They went over several items, most of which, or a lot of which, doesn't have a lot to do with what goes on here. But it's good that we pay attention and we have a presence. The Atalano R cubed extension, we don't care about that. But what we do care about is that last year was a good water year. Back to the subject of banking, which led me to this. When I first heard about banking water was probably about 8 years ago. We were at the height of a drought. It was just, and the thought of banking water when there really isn't any water, it made a lot of sense. But but that's when I discovered the business of banking, putting money in the bank. I understand, but putting water in someone else's aquifer. And making it worth their while, it's a brilliant idea. Well, now we're seeing it. Mojave Water Agency, they announced they have 2,000 acre-feet of excess water supply they need to do something with. Put it in our bank, and we have room for it. And I think, and we already are taking advantage of that. But it's exciting to see it happen 80 miles away from here, and talking about it, and they are including us in the conversations. Joshua Basin does have a large aquifer. They have the ability to receive the water, and they want to put their water in our bank. And what a great deal! It's just. Where do they come up with these ideas? It's just so simple, but excellent. Let's see. That's about all that really matters for the water agency, for the Mojave Water Agency, that is really worth talking about and sharing with you.
That R-cube stuff?
The R-cube is basically just a pipeline project. Is really what it is. And for Atalano, they had originally planned on bringing a new pipeline to Atalano, but for some reason or another, they didn't follow through. It didn't happen, even though it was in the plan. And I didn't understand why it didn't happen. Anyway, but it doesn't matter to us. But so now they're going to make it. They want to make it happen, and so it's. Yeah, the R-cube is a real popular discussion with Mojave Water Agency. How I understand it, it's just a glorified pipeline system that they're upgrading and redoing and increasing.
Well, as long as you have the stage, November 18th, Association of San Bernardino County Special Districts in Yucaipa.
My goodness, talk about technological advancements didn't make it to my calendar. I didn't know about it, so I didn't make it. And that's my report.
Okay. Future agenda items and training opportunities. Yes, ma'am.
Can I make a comment, please?
Yes, please.
Mojave Water Agency Board of Directors meeting should be December 14th. And I put Director Reynolds because I thought that Director Hun couldn't make it. I thought I overheard you guys talking the last time.
Oh, so the board is
I'm glad you brought that
the
up.
14th or the 12th, the board?
December, it should be December 14th.
And that's the board meeting?
Yeah.
And that, you've got Director Flowen on that one? At least in our agenda packet you do.
No. The first.
The third bullet
The third bullet.
Yeah.
November 14th.
Oh,
is really
Should be
December 14th.
December.
Oh.
Well, then why do you have December 12th underneath it then with Director Flowen?
So I think December 14th is a
December
Saturday.
14th is the one I attended.
Okay.
Or November, now you got me.
Yeah, I know.
November 14th is the one I
My
attended.
software updated in the computer and it seems to have switched everything around.
Yeah,
so
for future and,
So
okay.
we'll
My
just,
apologies.
we'll leave December 14th alone?
We'll leave it alone.
All right, so
Okay.
December 11th, we have a finance meeting, I believe, at 9 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
And we have a water resources meeting at 10:30.
December 11th?
Yes, sir. And December 12th, then I assume Director Flowen will be going to Mojave Water
December
Agency?
14th.
Yeah, December 12th. That's the second Thursday of the month.
And I happen to know that's their holiday lunch.
They haven't canceled
Ooh.
Oh, I want to go to that one.
Yeah, really?
Want to trade?
November 20th, so they haven't
All right, you all work it out later, but anyway, the meeting is December 12th, and the TAC meeting is December 19th. And are we having a board meeting? I don't have it marked down. When is our board meeting?
It's the first Wednesday of the month, but I didn't know, you told me to carry on
So I guess we're
with
waiting.
what we've been doing.
18th is when we have the
18 would be the
auditor's
first
schedule.
one, right?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, okay.
18th.
But you don't want to have a board meeting too on the 4th?
On the 4th, I don't know if we'll have any agenda items. I will, it doesn't look like we've got a packet at this point. So,
What?
to be determined.
Yeah, we had initially anticipated some board members going to Aqua this year during
Yeah.
that period, and that didn't happen.
Well, that's right,
and
it's
so
4 through 6, so we have, okay, so
Staff doesn't currently have anything pressing for that
All
current
right,
meeting.
so
but
we'll say-
you can
we'll
certainly
say
know
no.
if the board wants to.
at this point, and if it changes, we'll let you all know. Gail? All right. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Will we adjourn?
Do I have a second?
Second?
So moved, so
Okay.
done.